Welcome back to Inclusive Design 24, 2023, brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Google and Intopia, and our Gold supporters, Barrier Break and Tetralogical. You can follow us on Mastodon, and if you have questions for the presenters, post them using the ID24 hashtag or post them in the YouTube chat for our Q&A at the end of the session. A reminder that ID24 is a respectful community, and you can find our code of conduct on the Inclusive Design 24 website. I am honored to be joined by my guest host, Johan. Johan, over to you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Marcy Erica Chalwa. And Marcy is a social tech writer, a content strategist, founder of Merci Marcy and The Safe Place. And as she puts it herself, she's an advocate.
Welcome back to Inclusive Design 24, 2023, brought to you in partnership with our Platinum supporters, Google and Intopia.
I'm sorry, something went wrong there. I'm going to start again because I keep... Okay. I want to introduce Marcy Erica Chalwa, who is a social tech writer, a content strategist, and the founder of Merci Marcy and The Safe Place. As she states herself, she is an advocate for creating real cohesion within teams, enabling them to embody a culture of genuine inclusion beyond the bullshit. And Marcy will talk about how racism fuels user experiences and why you should understand the strength of biased narratives. Over to you, Marcy.
Thank you so much for this introduction. So yeah, everybody, hi. I'm so happy to be here in order to talk to you about racism and how it's going to fuel your user experiences on several levels that you may not even think about. And I will try to help you today in order to understand the strength of this bias narrative. So just so you know, yep. So who am I and why am I talking about that today? Yeah, so just like Johan said, I am Marcy Erica Chalwa. You can pronounce my name with whatever accent you want. It really doesn't, I really don't care about this. I am a UX training creator actually at Pattern.tech. I am a former chief editor for Wheel of Dev, which is actually an IT media. I am a former Justice France member, an inclusion consultant in user experiences, and I am a content strategist and creator. I'm not here to do my resume, but I would like to set the context. That way you will understand who am I and why I'm talking about this subject that I'm presenting to you today. I've done other conferences like why you want to attract and retain women in your tech teams. I was also talking about the inclusion of the community LGBTQI+ that I'm part of and how it works. And I talked also about the responsibility of mixity in tech teams for developers and CDOs. So my personal history with racism. Let's dive in. Just to share that with you as an introduction, I would like to go in the past and present what I've been facing as a mixed race kid, okay? So when I was a kid, the other kids said that at the time my skin color was not as fair as today, it was way darker. And the other kids were telling me that my skin color looked like chocolate, coffee, or shit. That's a terrible experience when you are a kid and when you are trying to create connections with others, when you are not even considered as a human. Okay, so I understood that being white was a way better way to be involved and be part of the society I was growing in. And I remember at 6 years old, I was praying to be white, or at least have white features. I mean by that, blue eyes, green eyes, fair skin, really straight hair, nothing like me. So yeah, it was difficult to be an African descent kid. But you know, then you grow up, you go through some communities, then you can feel a strong connection with because the inclusion is there. And I remember that at some point I left the high school in order to go in the professional area. And then I remember that meeting recruiters, human resources, people were actually saying that, you know, it was such a lucky thing to do not look like as an African descent, even if I've got an African ancestry. So yeah, I was praised actually for not having curly hair, not that really strong afro. And well, you know, when people ask me my origins and my cultural background, I remember that they always replied that I looked more professional than my cultural background. So yeah, look at me, avoiding my African features. So just so you know, I am the fruit of multiculturalism. My sister, my parents are from Madagascar, but not everybody is from Madagascar, the country. I mean, by that, it's a mix and blend of cultures. At the point, I've got 22 ethnicities in my DNA. I'm from Asia, I'm from Africa, Iberia, Scandinavia, I know, it's not really visible. I'm from Middle Eastern, and I've got also a Native American ancestry. And you know what, when I'm talking about that right now, I can tell you that it's something really strong with me in tech, and that made me a proud anti-racist inclusive feminist in our industry. And I will fight for an empathetic radical militancy for sure too. Yeah, okay, so why I'm talking about that, all this background. Let me show you who is my role model, because you've got to define yourself in your environment. You've got to define yourself in your surroundings. So yeah, this girl on the left of the screen is my role model. Her name is Rokhaya Diallo, and she's a French African inclusive feminist. And she wrote an amazing book that I strongly recommend you to read, which is Racism, a User's Guide by Rokhaya Diallo. Let me tell you this sentence that is from her book, really important, and it's going to lead us inside the UX, okay, the user experience. So, quote, when groups are racialized, this induces a universalization of the neutral of others. Thus, women and men from diversity are declared to be of color, universalizing the neutral of the color white, accepted in fact as the unquestioned reference. To give you an example of this amazing quote from her book, I'm going to share with you what was an issue in France several years ago, let's say 5 years ago. Rokhaya actually introduced the debate of the Band-Aid and the colored Band-Aid in France, which creates a huge drama. And she was actually pointing that there was a lack of inclusivity into the Band-Aids, because as you know, or probably you don't, but in France, we didn't have this range of color, okay? We only had at the time this range. And it was so funny because I remember at the first time I heard about this issue, I was like, but there's no problem with the Band-Aid, because, you know, it's the functionality of it that matters. It stopped the way your finger is going to bleed, and probably stopped the bacteria. And I didn't get, because as I told you, I was way darker when I was a kid. Okay, I was more in this range. And now as an adult, as you can see, I am on this range. So I didn't see the issue. I really didn't see the issue that Rokhaya Diallo was showing to the world and showing in France. So I was totally missing her point. And her point is so right about the user experiences. It's not about the functionality, not only, it's about the representation of God of it. If you want to be part of a journey, you've got to feel represented. You want to be part of the journey and the path. So I was, you know, missing the points about the lack of inclusivity at that time, and then understood that this was going to be my guide to the rest of my life as a UX creator. Just, well, how Rokhaya Diallo helped me in this adventure I'm going to share with you. Okay, so in 2021, I was selected to enter a real contest for Louis Vuitton. And I can tell you that Rokhaya Diallo was seriously helping me, because I was in charge of the project. Okay, so I was the project manager. As you can see, my team is from all around the world. you may see that people were Muslim, they were Jewish, they were Asian, they were European, they were African, they were Creole, they were European. So yeah, they were part of the world. And the brief was to create for Louis Vuitton a connected luggage with the screen and the design. Everything was actually so interesting because you've got to create everything about it, the strategy, the content, the luggage, everything about the user experiences. So at this point, we were discussing about what we would like to create, and we just wanted to do something that looks like us. I mean by that, something that is really multicultural and they're, yeah, passionate and worldwide. So we created 5 luggages. As you can see, we've got the European, the American, the African, the Arabic, and the Asian. So yeah, in the center, you've got a really strong symbol of the continent represented. But what you may not see, and I'm going to show you here, in the middle and all around it, you've got small details from the minorities that are parts of the continents. Why we decided to do that? Because we wanted to create a huge inclusivity, and we wanted to not only show what is powerful inside the several continents, but people who are probably forgotten as well and may feel represented. So just like Rokhaya Diallo is not about only the functional part, it's about the way you can feel represented and part of the journey. So for example, here in the European one, you can see that there is the Eiffel Tower, but in the background, you've got some azulejos that are part of the Iberian history with Muslim countries. So yeah, we were also in charge of creating the apps, creating something really cool to our customers, engage them in order to create good tips in the communities, the way they can activate also the luggage. So everything we have in charge, we wanted to design it in order to show that we really thought about a worldwide UX, to the point that we created some playlists with Deezer, just like Paris Awakening, going to Rio, destination at the Caire, and going to Kyoto, etc. So yeah, we really wanted to involve our customers and users as well on a worldwide range. And what happened? We won the contest. We won the contest because as a project manager, I really wanted to get my strategy really clear, inclusive, and I was thinking about the UX on different levels. Okay, so I was thinking about the pure UX, how we can create a great connection with our potential customers and users, and I really wanted us to be aware of our biases. Yeah, I really wanted to write a story that we want to tell and reclaim histories on human stories with the inclusion of minorities, for example. So how do you do that? This is my recipe. Okay, so focus on UX. What kind of UX goals are we trying to achieve when we develop a product or a service as a team? Normally, you know that, but we want our UX to be functional, usable. So the product or the service, we want it to be aesthetic, and we want to create a great experience with our users or customers. But let's add something else. Let's add 3 other points. Okay, the experience is going to be directly linked with the viability. Okay, so this is the business part. If you want it to be functional, usable, we've got to think about the feasibility. And by that, I'm saying technology, so the way we're gonna code everything, the way we're gonna develop all the service, wireframes, and the product as well. When I'm talking about the aesthetic, I'm also talking about the desirability. So yeah, how you can create the desire for the customer and the user. Let's add a little bit more spice. You know what? Yep. Yeah. In the middle of it, you've got to think about this part when we are talking about the inclusivity, when we are talking about the responsibility. We've got to link everything to the ethical parts. So yeah, everything here is connected. And that way, you will be sure to create the adaptability of your service or your product. But sad news, all these points may convey racist biases, and I know that sucks. But this is the guide that I'm going to share with you in a minute. So yeah, the questions you've got to ask yourself, absolutely, if you want to create an inclusive product without any racist biases, you've got to think, first of all, is my product or my service white driven? By that, I'm saying that is there any lack of representation of people of color, various ethnical backgrounds, etc. If you notice that there is a homogeneous standards, go for a diversity driven mindset. If you want to think about this correctly, you've got to think about this wheel that I'm presenting you now. Are you part of the top tier of social and economical scale? Okay, if you quote correctly all these points, you may be the top tier of social and economical scale. If you are a male, if you've got a huge buying power, if you've got white skin, if you are an heterosexual individual, if you are cisgender, by that I'm saying that you are not trans, if you are neurotypical, and if you've got your full ability, let me tell you that you are the top tier of social and economical scale. That may lead you to racist biases. It doesn't mean that you want to be racist, doesn't mean that you are racist fundamentally, but all these points may lead you to this, okay? You are, if you are part of this wheel, you are neutral, you are the typical, you are the standards. If you are out of this wheel, you are atypical, you are the minority. And let me tell you that the richness is there, and we have to create some bridges in order to connect with people who are not like us, okay? And the UX of Performance is desperately craving for you here. So when I was in charge of this amazing project with my team, I was always thinking if anyone included me, because I've got biases as well, I was thinking, yeah, am I judgmental? Are we judgmental? Are we ego-driven? I don't know, sometimes you can be ego-driven, even if you're part of minorities. So yeah, just be aware of all these issues, because it's going to be tricky if you want to be inclusive when it comes to a non-racist product or service. So I remember that I decided to turn every part of the project by being empathetic driven. So by asking questions to all the members, thinking about the needs of the customers or users of Louis Vuitton. Let me show you some biases that may bring a little bit of highlight on what I am saying. So biases on the norm. For example, this is the law of similarity. You know, the human eye tends to perceive the similar elements in the design as a complete picture. It can be a group, it can be a shape. So whatever the elements are separated, if they look like each other, your unconsciousness of the brain, that's the magic, that's the trick, is going to create a similarity box. So if you think about how may I include people of color in my product, for example, I don't know, with pictures, yeah, you can put all of them all around the journey, all the path of the user, okay? That will create the similarity. Let's talk about the von Richthofen effect. Actually, it's called the isolation effect. As you may see, you've got many squares and only one round, okay? Only one circle. So what is different is going to be shown and to be focused on because it's different. So be aware that at some point, if you are putting, for example, only one Black individual in the middle of white people, yeah, it's not that good, okay? You should absolutely go for this. For the pink end rule, actually, it's really important to do that. People are going to judge an experience because of the moment, let's say, the emotions, the feelings that they're going to feel at the peak of the experience, and they will remember about it as well at the end. Okay, so there is this peak and end rule. So if you want to put a representation of people of color or diversity, remember that you've got to do it at the beginning, at the peak, and at the end. That way, it's way better, and you will create an empathetic driven path to your user. Let's talk also about the serial position effects. Users have a propensity to best remember the first and last items in a series, just like I told you before. So yeah, just a way to prove my point and probably show you that my example was right. Let's talk about the law of the uniform connectedness. This is so important because elements that are, connected visually are going to be perceived as related. So let's say you are putting several Black people on your path, even if they are not all together on one picture, we will think about the circle of the Black individuals or people of diversity in general during the experience of the user. So that's really important in order to show that you understood there is a connection between all these people and representation, and it works for every minority, of course. And just to be in the great mindset, I would like to share with you the postal laws. It's really simple. I like this sentence a lot. It's be liberal in what you accept and conservative in what you send. Sometimes you've got to keep it simple, okay? But you've got to be liberal about what you're going to accept, okay? So if you want to manage it correctly, you've got to think about all those questions I've shown you before, like, am I judgmental? Am I ego-driven? Am I empathetic? Okay, all those questions are going to lead you to a liberal mindset, and then you can keep it really simple and be conservative about, the correct path, because we know that simplicity wins all the time. Okay, so we all share an influent human history. I was telling you before that we have to understand how our human history is part of us. And I would like to do with you this little example. It's going to lead us to the several points that I've been showing you before: the feasibility, the technology, the adaptability, and desirability. Okay, so let's travel through humanity, and the departure is now, folks. Okay, who are these people? Probably you are talking in the chat. I don't know, because I can't see you, but well, if you are telling me in the chat that these people are the All Blacks, you're right. They are the All Blacks. What are they doing? You're probably writing, they're doing the haka. Yeah, that's perfect. This is exactly that. I would like you to have a look on this group, the way they are behaving, and what they're wearing, etc. As you may see, they've got some tattoos on their arms and on their legs, okay? Just so you know, the haka was not only done, and it's not done only by men. It's done by women, men, and non-binary people from this area of the world, okay? Several differences, just like I told you before, the tattoos are on the arms, on the legs, and traditionally, they've got their tattoos on the face and on several parts of the bodies. But these are the biases you may have already about the haka. Okay, you probably thought your entire life that the haka was only done by men, which is false. And the tattoos are only set on the arms and on the legs, which is false as well. So let me talk to you about this traditional permanent tattoo. It's called the tamoko, and as you may know, it's from the Maori, from New Zealand and the Cook Islands. Actually, it's including some incisions and spiral patterns from on several parts of the bodies because everything has got a signification, okay? And this facial tattoo disappeared at the arrival of Europeans, but since the 80s, 70s, 80s, we tend to experience a renaissance for both men and women of this tattoo, this traditional permanent tattoo. Why am I talking to you about that? Oh, not going too far, okay. It's because this is typically what and how a why-driven mindset is going to lead you when it comes to biases. Just so you know, these people from New Zealand, so the Maori community, because of the tattoos, are not recognized as human with the Face ID of Apple. So yeah, it can seriously lead to several issues for minorities from all around the world. And they are not the only ones, okay? We've got several tribes that may be concerned. We've got the Berberian from North Africa. We've got the Drong and Dai tribes, who are actually Chinese minorities. The Wodaabe tribes in West Africa. And we tend to forget that minorities can use tech too. So that's typically why we wanted to get the minorities involved inside our luggage from Louis Vuitton, which actually leads you to something more inclusive. So yeah, it's quite a failure to avoid and think that people are not human when it comes to technology. So we are traveling in Africa, as you may see, or let's say the triangle from Africa to America to Europe, etc. So I would like to show you all this history when it comes to African American and let's say Creole communities in several parts of the world. As you may see, you've got some slaves sadly living their lives as a workforce. And if you are looking at this, it's not a pattern, it's the boat where that were used for the trade slave. Yeah, you've got some chokers and, well, you've got a human just here facing his condition, just considered as an animal and, you know, probably going to be eaten by several dogs in order to keep him in the plantation. Why am I showing you that? It's only because we should absolutely change the master slave nomination for main, secondary, or leader, follower, parent, child, because you know, some people are really triggered by the master slave nomination, and I think it's totally okay if they've got this background, this really emotional, intense background about slavery. So we probably can change that in our tech teams too. Our users are not only the customers, okay? Our users are also people who are creating tech and UX in our industry. So just to show you, I've been setting a large list of the nominations you could use. And yeah, you've got to be aware that at some point the language is ubiquitous by default. So you can harm people even if you don't want to. Some other example of why-driven failure recognition, if you do not know, Google in 2016 recognized Black people for gorillas and monkeys in general, which actually lead us in a really sad part of our history because Black people were compared all the time as animal. So yeah, the traumas are real. And just to let you know, we've got something really bad right now with the beauty filters, just like in Snapchat or Instagram or let's say TikTok. If you want to be way more beautiful, okay, the facial features are going to get your skin lighter, whiter, and it's going to reinforce this bleaching culture that Black people are just trying to fight in order to embrace who they are. So yeah, when it comes to functional and feasibility in technology, I think that we can do better, because for some people the triggers are real, and we are actually no one to judge that. Diversity-driven examples in visual. So let's talk about the aesthetic and the desirability to the customers and users. I would like to tell you that you should absolutely promote diversity through your emojis, your pictures, your avatars, and at least use the neutral if you want to be inclusive, okay? The neutral is not this range, and these people are not the darkest Black people you may know in your life. Because sometimes when I am dealing with some clients, they are telling me that they're using only this range for Black people, and I can tell you that this darker range exists. Okay, so don't be afraid to use diversity through the skin color, but also the age, the ethnicity, the cultural beliefs, and the ability. So yeah, you can use various example of emojis, avatars, and pictures. Just to let you know, some colors do not mean the same in every culture. Just for example, if you want to use white into an Asian app service, be aware that it's actually linked with death, instead of our European culture, which is actually more about purity, clean, etc. And it works for several colors. Yeah, this is an amazing project. Actually, it's a diverse name generator from several parts of the world. So you've got African continent, but not only that, you've got also the Asian. And this project is called Karen is a Minority here. That makes me laugh when I saw that. So, well, if you want to generate diverse names or person from various gender, countries, culture, etc., into your test, and you want to implement that, you should absolutely go for this Git project. You can scan it, or probably I will give you the slides at the end of this conference in order to show you what you can do in diverse added value names, okay? Diversity-driven in textual examples, because not everyone reads from left to right, and we tend to forget that. For example, Arabic and Hebrew are going to be read in that way. For Japanese, it's going to be this way and this way, okay? All the way around. In Chinese, it's exactly the same normally, traditionally, but nowadays they tend to go for the European version of reading. Okay, so they're going to read from the left to the up to the down. And yeah, it will have an impact on your code and your interfaces, because everything's going to move if you are not thinking about the way people read. If you are, for example, in an international context and not a context, sorry for that. Yeah, be aware that, of course, the way people are reading is going to have an impact on your code. And if you want to learn a bit more, I strongly suggest you to have a look on this amazing conference done by a French speaker called Pierre-Yves Lapersonne. In 45 minutes, you will understand how you can implement everything when it comes to an international context with your product or service. So, almost my conclusion: to improve our anti-racist UX, my advice: you should absolutely create your inclusive design system with your vocabulary type. For example, avoid harmful vocabulary. Okay, just to give you an example, I had to deal with a client one day who was actually telling me that the Asian woman in his team was really good at work, and he told me that she was a banana. And I was like, what? Yeah, you know, she's a banana. She's yellow from the outside and white on the inside. And I was like, oh my God, really? How can you use that kind of word inside your tech team? You have to avoid this kind of really harmful vocabulary. So be aware about that. When it comes also to ethnicity, when we are talking about Caucasian type, we are actually not right, because Caucasian people are from Caucasus, which is actually a part of the world that includes Georgian people, Armenian people, okay, just in the middle of Turkey and let's say European Europe, the Western Europe, sorry. So yeah, be aware that sometimes we may use some words to say something else and that it originally don't say the same thing at all. So all this vocabulary may lead to cultural erasure as well. Be inclusive into your design systems when it comes to images. Just like I told you before, don't be afraid to use various range of people in order to represent them and let them be part of your journey. When it comes to emojis as well, pictures, etc. Because this is what we did with our team. And when you want to create something different for several people, push yourself into history, learn about the patterns, for example, from the cultural you're just looking for. Be curious. You don't have to, be narrow when you want to include a lot of people into your project. And by that, I'm not only talking about your customers and your users, I am talking also about the teams that is actually your team. You've got to advocate for what you want. If you are not an ambassador of inclusivity, I'm quite sure that it's going to be a fail at the end of the day. And to move on these harmful behaviors that we may implement into our products and the way we are just having connections with people in our industry, you should absolutely understand that people's vulnerability is real. Consent isn't a joke. And as UX designers and tech in general, we've got to think about consent all the time, and we should not, create some dark patterns that are going to lead to harmful behaviors and prejudices that are seriously having an impact on people. So private informations are private, and the good consent forms are comprehensive, they are clear, there is a strong opt-in, it's actually culturally appropriate, it should be actually accessible and editable and reviewable. Okay. When I'm talking about forms, also you've got to think about the really long names from people from all around the world. Okay, some people do not have a first name, for example. Yeah, in some part of the world, just like in Indonesia, some part in Africa and Madagascar as well. Okay. So yeah, think also about the gender, the way you can use this information, the way you're gonna, not only get them, but use them and probably withdraw them. To show my point, I would like to share with you the amazing work of Alba Villamil. She's an amazing UX creator, and she's specialized in the vulnerability that you can create when it comes to your interviews, for example, and she wrote the Ethical Researchers Checklist. Look at her conference. It's just a gold mine if you want to have amazing insights of the way you can create harmful interviews and harmful processes when you want to create an inclusive environment in your user research. So yeah, be aware that at some point you may, in your research design, implement some harmful characteristics that are actually leading to high prejudice. You can, create some range like this, and also put your several items of the research design and also suggestions, at the end of the interview. To almost it's almost the end of the conference. I would like to let you know that to create something that is really rich, not harmful for people, and that is going to lead to an amazing inclusion at the end of the day. You've got to question your privileges and responsibility and power systems that we are all part of, because the impacts are real. For example, racism, ethnocentrism, just like being thinking only about your skin color, your cultural beliefs, etc. They have an impact on all those points that are here. Xenophobia, colonialism, imperialism as well, and cultural erasure. Okay, all those points are going to have strong impacts on people and the way they may interact with your product or a system. So economical system, political system, legal system, health system, educational, immigration citizenship system, housing property rental, social systems, geographic situation, and the family situations. Just to let you know, for example, if you are in charge of creating a data set when it comes to tech in medical and health system, you've got to think about having a huge range of skin colors. Otherwise, it's going to lead mainly Black women and Hispanic women, and let's say people who are not having a fair skin, to late diagnosis when it comes to cancer, skin cancer, and it's going to be a damage for the lives. So yeah, we've got to think about that when we want to think about the political system and the impact of racism, ethnicism, xenophobia, and colonialism, for example. You know, in tech, we tend to forget that Congo is actually a place where a strong war is currently happening because of all the materials we need in order to create tech. Congo is actually a political system failure when it comes to IT because they use a children workforce to go there, and it leads to a rape culture in Congo. So yeah, we've got to be aware about all those points in order to create something that is not having a racist narrative into it, okay? I know it's a little bit heavy, so I will end my conference here, but yeah, be aware about the diversity in general and be liberal in what you accept, conservative in what you create, and all those several points that I was telling you before. If you want to keep in touch with me, okay, so you can find my company, which is Merci Merci on Google. You can find me on Blue Sky, you can find me on LinkedIn, and if you want to have a look on the other conferences that I talked to you before, you should, yeah, absolutely scan this QR code. And thank you for the moment we've shared all together.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcy. That was, wow, that was an awesome talk. I am just, wow, I am blown away with all the information that you gave us. I have learned so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I have so many takeaways. Otis. My cat Otis has joined us. Of course, he needs to, and there is his tail. I want to ask Johan, do we have any questions?
No questions, but watching the chat, you gave people more than enough insights and stuff to talk about. So especially the example from the All Blacks got some really positive feedback. So I advise you to read it back if that's possible. But I was wondering if there are any other resources, any other talks, any other people that you can recommend besides your talk that we should read or watch or listen to learn more about the subject and especially learn about our own biases.
Yeah, of course. I was talking about Pierre-Hugues Lapersonne, which is a French speaker. You should absolutely watch his work. It's amazingly done. and really clear. So if you want to implement an inclusive code for anyone from every part of the world, you should absolutely look at his work. I was talking about Rokhaya Diallo, the French African role model that I have. She's got an amazing podcast with Asian co-speaker, and they are talking about the links that they are creating within the Asian and African community in France. And they are talking about that in a professional way. And that's amazing. You should absolutely hear what they're saying about that, because the issues are, well, intense.
Wow. Thank you very much. We'll definitely do. Kathleen, do you have any more questions?
I have a shout out. So there is a huge shout out coming from Josh Kim. So Josh Kim is an amazing accessibility designer. And he says, huge shout out to Marcy for calling out political systems and immigration/citizenship. Oh, I'm slowly reading. I should put on reading glasses here, but I'm going to read slowly. Huge shout out to Marcy for calling out political systems and immigration/citizenship. Design is absolutely apolitical, and it is so poignant that she is spotlighting attention there. Coming from civic technology, I have seen firsthand how racism, ableism, and sexism plays out in those institutions at scale. In my opinion, from a trickling down of private consulting and tech bro culture, it absolutely deserves more conversation. So,
thank you so much for this shout out. Oh, thank you so much. I am so pleased to hear that, because I think this subject is, invisible, and people are just suffering from the ableism that they are facing day by day. So I'm thrilled to hear that, and I would love to talk with him if it's possible, and talk a little bit more about all these points.
Oh, he's very excited emoji from that. Oh, and someone in YouTube, Jennifer S. Oh, and I'm wondering if that's Jennifer Strickland. Josh Kim is awesome, wonderful call out. So, so there you go. For there, I'm looking at anything else in the YouTube. There was also it was great as ever. You're getting inspiring.
Yeah.
Yep. So you are just getting all the call outs. So there we are. I want to thank you again for your amazing session. And I'm going to wrap this up to say, if you like this session, hit that YouTube like button. And don't forget that you can subscribe to youtube.com/inclusivedesign24 to be kept in the loop on our future events. And Inclusive Design 24 is brought to you by our supporters: Google, Intopia, Barrier Break, Tetralogical, Intuit, InfoAxia, the law office of Lady Feingold. Inclusive Design 24 will be back on the hour with our next session. See you then.